Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Brandon, your trusted realtor, and I'm coming to you with another great episode. Today, I want to spend some time talking to you about the debt to income ratio and why that is such an important factor that your lender uses when determining your credit eligibility or your credit worthiness. Now, I like to start off with setting the foundation with an example because examples and analogies really work for me. Imagine that you walk into a venue and you see someone across the room. Aesthetically beautiful individual, you approach that person, you begin a conversation, and then bam, you guys are communicating and going back and forth for months, for weeks, for however long. You realize that there are certain characteristics about said person that although they are aesthetically pleasing, these characteristics dissuade you from wanting to pursue a relationship from them. Maybe somebody's familiar with that or that scenario. The same is the case with a lender. You want something, and the lender has to make an assessment by looking at you and kind of looking at your overall sexiness, your credit worthiness, to determine whether or not it is an appropriate risk for them to lend you money. And your debt to income ratio is a huge driver of that. That is set by the federal government, by FHA. And FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac say that your debt to income ratio has to be 45%. The reason this is important is because these loans get sold in a pool in the secondary market. And so there are certain risk factors that have to be taken into consideration in order for a bank to sell your loan to someone else. Well, you'll say, Brandon, why is that important to me? Well, keep listening. So your debt to income ratio has to be 45%, and they look at that. Your debt to income ratio is your total expenses divided by your total income times 100 to give you a percentage. But let's say you already have existing expenses outstanding now. Well, even with your new loan amount, your total debt to income ratio can't exceed 45% in order for the lender to approve the loan, in order for you to maximize and have the best rate. A few things that is going to really help to help the lender to determine your buying power. That buyer power is going to come in the form of a pre-approval letter. And if that rate is above 45%, then your lender will deny you for approval for that loan. So things that will impact you and your rate things that will impact your DTI are going to be things that are specific to you. One really good example that I like to use with people, and I'll be frank with you, a lot of individuals that I've spoken to, especially people who are black and brown, that have done a whole lot, have excelled and obtained multiple degrees, they have lots of student loan debt. And that student loan debt in part is completely creating a division between individuals who qualify to participate in the FHA program, which is the Federal Housing Administration down payment program, housing assistance program. They allow you to get into a home using 3%, or paying 3% of the purchase price of the property. But in this case, they also require that they have certain requirements around student loans. For example, they require that you use 1% of the loan of the total amount of the student as the student loan payment. Now that 1%, if you're paying $180,000 or $200,000 back in student loans, that's $1,800. That's $2,000. That blows your debt to income ratio out of the water. That means that because of those student loans, because of those high student loan balances that you're carrying, your only possible real solution here immediately is to have a good credit score above 700 to qualify for a conventional loan, because at least then the conventional loan, they have looser regulations or requirements, and they can take into consideration the actual deferment agreement, whether that's a repayment plan or an adjusted payment amount that you're paying on your student loans. So that puts you in that. So that was one situation, one real clear-cut situation where your debt to income ratio has a huge impact on your ability to qualify for a loan. So think about you adding things onto this, other household expenses, credit cards, cars, whatever it is that you add to that, increases your debt to income ratio on top of your student loans. Now, why is that important? Because that determines, like I said, your buying power. Now, think about all the historical posts that I've given you this February data that I just posted, the January data that I posted about DC, Maryland, and Virginia, you will see that the average median home price is $500,000. The median home price in DC. The average is closer to $550,000. What you're also finding there is that with that debt to income ratio, that means that in order to be in a place where you are comfortable, it doesn't mean just go up in the price, the amount of the property. That means that you have to pay more in the down payment, or you have to earn more income in order for you to be in a place where you will qualify for a loan of, let's say, over $400,000. In DC, there's not very many single family or detached homes that are above that amount or that set price point, unless you want your mortgage to be above $3,000 or $3,200, right? And that is really where DC is trending towards now, that the average, a $2,000 mortgage payment is $3,000 is now the new $2,000. And because that's where the prices are going. And so this really underscores the intrinsic value of the debt to income ratio and really the nuance. One other variable to take into consideration is if you're using down payment and closing cost assistance, then some of these programs have their own interest rate that they overlay on top of the money that's needed in order to be acquired. Well, depending on the type of instrument it is or the way you're acquiring that down payment, it could be a second loan, so the home has to be used as an asset the loan or the down payment assistance is a second lien against the property. Sometimes they do it where it's a situation where the home is just a promissory note, so it's a promise to pay in the event that you refinance or resell that property. You pay back the amount that you use, but it depends. So you're going to pay a price to buy that money down, to buy the money, to get the money from that down payment assistance program. And even though you don't have to pay that monthly, even though you don't have to pay that annually, even though you don't have to pay that after 3 or 4 years, when you decide to terminate that loan, in most instances, you will have to pay back that loan amount for that down payment assistance for many programs on top of whatever interest. And when those things are factored in and all of that back end math and calculation is done, you realize very quickly that your debt to income ratio has a huge role to play on your affordability. So hopefully with all of that, this has been helpful to you or somebody you know in the ecosystem. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you can stay tuned in and in tune to the latest and greatest realty here in the DMV and everywhere else. I'm Brandon, your trusted realtor, and I look forward to being your source and resource for all of your real estate needs. Take care and talk to you soon.